Hey, welcome everyone to the Big Apple Film Festival afternoon session. Well, afternoon here on the East Coast. And we're here today talking with Shari Simpson. She's going to talk about marketing a family film. And she'll introduce herself. Most of you know the drill. We have questions. We have time for questions. You can ask them at any time. Just raise your hand and I can get to you. And so welcome, Shari, and you can give us a little background and we can start talking about family films.
Great. So it's great to see everybody. I apologize in advance. I have two crazy pug dogs who were supposed to be with my husband, but he also had a meeting at this time. So if you hear chewing or anything in the background or me screaming, that would be why. So my name is Shari Simpson, and I am a writer. I work extensively in the family-friendly space. A little bit about me. I started out as an actor, and as I was going, I was sort of like not liking a lot of the scripts that I was getting. I felt like a lot of them were demeaning to women or just really crass, and it just was not my mindset. So I decided to take comedy writing at Gotham City Improv. The Gotham City Improv. I met my writing partner there, and we developed a showcase for ourselves as actors, which then um, a producer saw, and he said that the writing was so good that we should actually turn it into an off Broadway play, which we did. It's called Maybe Baby, It's You, and it was a series of vignettes. And as soon as uh, as soon as I was able to sort of see how I could affect people with my writing, I was kind of officially done as an actor. I was like, this is way more interesting to me. And I'd written quite a bit in the past, and all of a sudden I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So my partner Charlie and I, our play was very successful, got great reviews, and so we decided to write a movie. We knew nothing about writing a movie, but we wrote this incredibly ridiculous and broad comedy, and which doesn't even exist anymore. But it got us our first writing job, and after that kind of what made the rounds, we were sort of hot for a while. We were meeting all these people and writing spec after spec after spec, and then as things do, it started to cool off. And at one point, we were like, "This is not going to happen." And that's when we got the Disney Channel movie. We wrote a DCOM called The Swap, and did very well for the network, and they hired us to write two more projects. And then we sort of, between that and a couple of other projects, we sort of became known as people in the family friendly 4 quadrant space who could handle that family friendly space without being too sweet or too edgy. It's a very fine uh, thing in the middle, which obviously changes all the time, and we could talk a little bit about that. But just currently, my partner and I'm also a children's book author. I have a couple of books um, that came out through Disney Books and um, Hyperion, and did fine, did well. So my partner and I currently have in development animated series with Highlights Magazine, which is very fun. That's a industry, standard. I mean, they're fantastic, and a production company. We have a project that we have a meeting about at Amazon for a family action adventure movie that we wrote. We're actually writing a feature for Pocket Seven Films And this is our first biopic, family-friendly biopic. It's called 1% Better, and it's the story of Chris Nikic, who is the first person with Down syndrome to complete an Ironman triathlon. And there's a bunch of other stuff too. But that's basically kind of where I'm at, where we're at. And it's funny when I told my writing partner and my agent that I was doing this, I was like, how to write a marketable family film. They were both like, when you find out, let us know, because it changes all the time. Kind of what's hot, what's, what works. And family films definitely are not exactly the same, but sort of verge on the same area as four quadrant films. And maybe you all know what that is, but in case you don't, four quadrant is women under 25, men under 25, women over 25, men over 25. Everybody, basically. But if you can appeal to all four of those, it's a really good thing. So yes, you definitely verge on these are, the tentpole movies that studios make the most money from, which is why Marvel had such a even though Marvel is kind of like petering a little bit, it definitely is they were all four quadrant, and family friendly considered. So that's basically what yeah.
So can you define exactly what a family friendly film is? Because it sounds moving.
Yes.
Like
it's a moving target, for sure. But basically, when you're talking about family friendly, you're talking about four quadrant, like things you can that aim for the young audience, but the parents will watch without wanting to like hang themselves, because it's so boring. So basically, it's very little blood or gore, no sex scenes, foul language. To get the PG-13 rating, you can have a couple of curses and possibly one F-bomb. But just so you know, and this is kind of funny, for all the years that I've been doing this, this latest script, the feature, it's the only one that we've ever had to use any kind of cursing for it. It's like shit, So so that's kind of where the family friendly space was for the longest time. Currently, as I said, it's a moving target, but currently I talked to my agent about current mandates and action adventure. That's what we're talking about now as far as family friendly. Action adventure is the only thing that's selling. So
okay, but your characters, like your antagonists, can they be super dark, or is it something that you again have to tightrope walk?
yeah, I mean, they tend to be family friendly films tend to be a little more good versus evil. So not a lot of shading on either side, though that has changed a little bit. With the advent of all the Pixar films, where the good and bad, is much more. It's more nuanced. Let's just say that it's more nuanced.
Okay.
So.
And Pam wants to know if they need a positive message and a positive ending.
Yes, almost always. Yes, universal themes, high concept, clear heroes and villains, a lot of humor, and yes, resilience and perseverance, a lot of themes, and generally, even if it's a relatively dark film, there has to be some sort of triumph for the protagonist at the end of some sort. Yeah.
Okay, and it's not they don't have, they're not like faith-based. Does that overlap?
No, that's a different thing entirely. There's faith-based, there's faith light, there's inspirational, and they all kind of, I've written in all of these spaces, so they all kind of cross over. But family friendly can include faith, but it is not the same thing.
Okay. And then Carla, did you want to ask a question? Come on and
Hi, Shari, thank you
Hey,
so much
hi,
for your
Carla.
time. Hi.
Yeah.
Um,
Hi.
would you also say that family friendly is like a dramedy, drama and comedy?
Yes, you almost always. It's
Okay.
very rare. It's very rare to find anything family friendly that's not at least a dramedy. So it's got to have a lot of humor. That's what my partner and I are really good at. So that's why we've worked well and worked pretty consistently, is we know kind of how to bring the humor into even difficult situations.
Okay. And one other question, what
Mhm.
differentiates family friendly and young adult?
Oh yeah, very different.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, if you've seen some of the young adult stuff on Netflix, the coming of age stuff is very, it's coming of age. So it's very romance focused, um, almost, I would say almost exclusively, actually. Uh,
Okay.
at least sex is at least referred to, if not actually seen. Yeah, so it's a very different space. And that's a very specific market. And you'll see with a lot of networks and streaming services, they kind of go in and out of having a department like that. It's interesting because in publishing, there is a very distinct differentiation between middle grade, which is like 9 to 12, 9 to 13, and then YA, which is, you know, uh,
I guess
it's
high
a
school and
huge,
college.
yes, and it's a huge market. And it's funny that that doesn't really translate that well to screen. I'm not really sure why, just that like, you know, no, you know, I have two teenagers and they're not looking like, hey, let's watch TV, you know. That's not like their thing, right?
Right.
Um, no.
At one point they were like with high school musical, I guess.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I can't think of one now though.
Yes. And the market has changed hugely since High School Musical. I mean, that was a huge hit. That probably would not happen again. Not the way, by the time we did because that was a Disney Channel original movie, by the time we did ours, which was maybe just only 5 years after that, um, the 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 market had changed so much that just to get like a half of a share of what High School Musical did was considered a huge success. So,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, thank you.
yeah.
So, and then stations like Hallmark and Lifetime, are they like
Mm-hmm.
places to go with family friendly? And if so, is there ways to get into getting
Okay,
material?
so I've written 3 Hallmark films at this point. Um, uh, and again, it's a different, it's that romance with Hallmark in particular. Hallmark is its own animal, and there's a reason why there's so many spoof things on TikTok and stuff about Hallmark, because it's a very, very, very specific, narrow mandate. Romance. Romance has to be the main thing. Now they did have their Hallmark movies and mysteries um, sort of offshoot channel where they try to do more mystery stuff. But strangely enough, we just had last year we wrote a film for Hallmark as they were trying to push hard into the just straight drama um, area. and we wrote it, got paid for it. It was wonderful. They were so excited about it, couldn't wait to do it. And then we just found out last week, they're like, the mandate has changed at Hallmark again. And now we can't do just drama. It's back to just romance. So it's just, like I said, it's a moving target. It's just all over the place. So yeah, so Hallmark is very specific. Lifetime is very specific too. They tend to do much more like, oh, you murdered my cousin who was, having an affair with your brother, whatever it is, it's like kind of ripped from the headlines stuff.
Okay. And then, so what about, so let's say we've written a script and we don't know whether it's family friendly or not. Like, what would be the advantage of calling it family friendly? I mean, if you were able to figure out, yes, this would fit all the quadrants. Is it like easier to sell something that's considered family friendly, or is it just a different way of marketing your script?
I don't think people are calling it that much anymore. In fact, it's funny, when I was doing this, I actually found this New York Times article from August. It's called "Honey, I Blew Up the Family Film." And it's talking about the disappearance of the family film. It was according to some media analytics people. This person in particular, he said, due to cultural, technological, financial, and sociological factors, the family film is kind of not happening right now. They're calling it 4-quadrant or action adventure or action comedy. Family friendly is like an afterthought. So you wouldn't necessarily call it that. You would probably call it kind of more the genre that it is: action adventure, action comedy, dramedy, something like that.
And then Pam wants to know, talking about how you got your representation.
Okay. Yeah. So, my current agent, we got when we wrote The Swap. So we got The Swap, we got that job without representation, which is kind of a crazy thing. Doesn't really happen that often. But it did happen at that point where we knew a producer. Yeah. Okay. So guys, if you don't have representation and you do want to kind of break in from the back end, get to know as many producers as possible. Let them be familiar with your work. We had a producer who had read something of ours a long time ago. And when we came to, when she was, she used to work for Mar Vista. She doesn't any longer, but Mar Vista did something with Disney Channel, and she remembered us and brought us in as potential writers. We had to pitch like 4 times to get that job, because we were kind of untested and we didn't have representation and that sort of thing. But we did get the job, and after The Swap, and it was a success, then we got representation. But we still had to have our boots on the ground, basically. It wasn't like people were calling us. We really had to like tell people we were here, and have people recommend us. And so honestly, the best way is to know people who know people, and to have a lot of great material that they're like, yeah, I'll read something of yours. You give them your best. And that's kind of how it works. So we ended up getting representation from that job.
Okay. And you mentioned before that you wrote a film that doesn't exist anymore, but it got you writing a job. So how did that work?
Okay. So that again was one of those things where you got to know people who know people. My writing partner briefly dated a celebrity. This is so random, but this is really how it happened. And we'd written this script, and she liked it so much that she wanted to play the lead in it. So she put together a showcase reading of it. and invited a bunch of people and a bunch of business people that she knew. And that film never went anywhere, but there was someone in the audience who had just optioned something and liked our take on the thing that we had done and hired us to write that one. And that script that he hired us to write became sort of our way in to a lot. We did a great job with it. It was very unusual, very funny. Was it family friendly ish? It was more 4-quadrant than it was, because it was a little dark. But it definitely opened a lot of doors for us. So that's my specific story. I know every person that I know who's a writer has a very different story of how they ended up. But almost all of them, I would say probably 80%, was they knew someone who would look at a script, and that's kind of was their way in, because it's just really hard to get people to read your stuff, like cold. You just can't like submit it and have someone with any power actually read it. So
Yeah,
it's challenging. Yeah.
it seems to be getting harder every year.
Oh, it does. It does.
So, Loma, do you have a question you wanted to ask?
I do. Thank you. I'm so happy that this is happening today. So thank you.
Oh, good.
I really am. So my question is, I have a writing partner also. As a matter of fact, every project I've ever written, I've brought a partner with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm finding is that when looking for an agent, they want to see work I've written on my own. So how did you, or are you all navigating the writing partnership?
Mm-hmm. There's quite a few writing partnerships, and would you not seek representation? I mean, is this a consistent writing partnership, or someone that you sort of write with and write on your own?
Well, no, that's the thing. Every project that I've worked on, I have a different writing partner.
Oh, okay. That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. My writing partner has been my consistent partner throughout the time. So we got represented together. So do you have anything that you've written on your own? Because you're right, that will be a difficult thing.
Yes, there are things, but they don't reflect this genre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a genre that you want to write, and this is the space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think probably the best way is to just put your nose to the grindstone and kind of churn out one or two samples of you writing with your own voice in this space. That's really the only way that's gonna work. Because you're right, if you're not looking to be represented with your partner, they're gonna want to see your own stuff written on your own.
Thank you. That answered the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Steve, did you want to ask your question? You want to? Okay.
Hey, Shari, thanks for being here.
Hey, yes.
So curious about what you thought of Champions, which, it's just amazing. The Down syndrome, where,
Right.
and then also how you navigate the PC prone world we live in, which generally is a good thing, but sometimes can be frustrating because as writers, we pride ourselves in doing the research and being able to empathize and get into somebody's head and somebody's path, but say you're writing without being Down syndrome or having a Down syndrome child, how do you sort of, for lack of a better word, insulate yourself from criticism that could derail the project?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It is good to have some sort of connection with the world that you're writing about. For something like Down syndrome, it's not quite as tough as it would be if, like, I was trying to write something for the African American community, which my partner and I'm not kidding, we were hired to adapt a book by an African American author, and most of the main characters were Black. And my immediate response, even this is like 5 years ago, only 5 years ago, but I knew, having worked in, you know, a lot with DEI, I was like, this is not a good idea. So we went to the author, and she was like, I'm fine with it. And we went to a bunch of people, they were fine with it. That would not happen now, probably. We did a good job, but you know, we were planning on bringing in, it was a series, the pilot for a series. And I was like, I will not do this unless you get a Black showrunner, because this is like, you know, career suicide, number one. And number two, I think that's awful to try to take work from a marginalized community, because I know so much about this. So it was very challenging for me. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing right now. And I guess you could call it PC. It kind of verges on, I do feel like people who have experienced and lived these things are the best people to tell the story. Sometimes you can work with them. And that's basically what happened with us with writing for this film. We worked extensively with the family, and extensively with Special Olympics, extensively with the Iron Man. And we'd also written a film. Seems to be our new area. We'd also written a film for Hallmark about a young couple with Down syndrome. Don't ask me how that happened, but
And did you
we had
secure life rights with the Iron Man? How did that work? Like life rights with him and the family, or?
the producer had secured the life rights. Yeah. So we didn't go looking for this project. It came looking for us, basically. So the producer slash director had already secured the life rights, and she has relatives on the spectrum and in the ID community, and she is she's an ambassador with Special Olympics, and so yes, like if you're choosing to write something, you would never just go, you know what, I'm just going to go and secure the life rights of someone from a marginalized community that's not my own. That would be foolish. But as I said, this one kind of came to us, and they knew that we could handle it and be sensitive to it, and we would do extensive research. So,
And is it expensive for the life rights, and does it tie in like future income, or is it like a flat fee?
That's a really good question. I never asked what she paid for the life rights. I mean, I've optioned things before, but usually it's IP, like books or something like that, not life rights. So I'm not really sure what she. Do you have something in mind? Is that why you're asking about securing life rights, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wish I could give you that number. I actually don't know it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think it would vary. It's. I feel like it's negotiated.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm
Yeah.
not an expert in that either. So.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, but yeah, with downstream, my wife volunteers with Special Olympics as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a way to learn about, to do the research, something like that.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, definitely. So I did want to tell you guys that I asked my agent about current mandates. So here's a couple of things that he said. I think I told you already. Analytics prove that action adventure is what is working the best right now. The so-called family film has been the slowest to rebound from the pandemic. Here's another for instance. He's like, even with IP, first of all the really popular IP is all bought up anyway, but they had the IP of, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Geronimo Stilton books, huge series of books for kids, still having trouble selling it, even though it's got a built-in audience. So it's really, it's a tough market right now. Let's see, mid-budget family action adventure. Everybody wants to watch family friendly to feel good. That's what he said. And for untested writers, he's like, make sure you write a great sample, and don't expect to sell it. Just have it as a sample. And that's a really good thing to know, because otherwise you can feel like disappointed. I wrote this great thing and nobody's buying it. It will definitely, if it's really good, I mean, it could sell. That doesn't happen very often, but to use it as a great sample to open doors other places is probably what you're looking at. So those were some of the things that he said.
So I guess I want to talk about like what, besides having a script, if you're going to be pitching your projects, like what you need, like do you need more than, do you need like a log line, you need a 1 page, do you need a synopsis, complete script?
Yeah, pitching is an interesting thing, because you would think that there would be like an industry standard for pitching. The industry standard right now is like, just don't make me sit there for longer than 15 minutes. That's about it. Like how you do it varies wildly. I've done like full on, like almost acting things out. I've done just a Bible, a show Bible. I've done like a log line, and then we just kind of talk about the possibilities of the project. So there's a wide range of how that goes. But probably the thing you want is log line, treatment, or outline. And I mean, it's great to have the project completed. So if you do great, they're like, can we read it? But that's a lot of work for possibly something that might not fly. But if you have a great pitch, it helps for me and my partner because we were actors, right? So we know how to act out our own writing. If that's not your thing, find another way to be sort of eye-catching. Maybe it's your graphics or something like that. But yeah, definitely that's what I would think is logline, treatment. If it's a show, it helps to have the pilot script written, but just the pilot script. Don't write the whole series, because even if you feel like, oh, I know exactly what this show is and exactly where it needs to go, they're not going to want that. They're going to want a lot of say in how the series progresses. I found that out the hard way. So only the pilot episode. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then well, also, would you recommend shooting a scene or something that you could add into like a sizzle proof of concept?
Yeah. Yes. I had a project where they shot a sizzle reel, and it definitely helps. It's particularly if you're not an exciting pitch person, like you can't, it's hard. You have a great idea, but maybe you're not great at getting it across. a sizzle reel or a scene or something, or even just a really great visual Bible is almost essential these days.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in the heading for the panel today, it talked about how family friendly can be low budget. You know, it's budgets are, and it feels like, you know, it's, as emerging writers, writing lower budget features is a good way to kind of break in, or at least people look at lower budget projects a little bit more, you know, doable.
Yeah, definitely low to mid. You don't want to be writing a Marvel movie as your first thing, that's for sure. So yeah, the lower budget to the mid range, I would say.
Okay, and then would you say most of these films are character based more than plot driven, or it's like every other?
I would say that it's even. And that's funny that you say that, because that was something I wanted to remember to tell you, was if you're writing a family friendly film, it's really important, even if your kid character is the lead, you have to have a lot of strong adult characters around it. Talk about another thing about finding it out the hard way. We had written this incredibly crazy action adventure film where a 13-year-old girl was the lead, and we thought we had done well with the adult characters, and we brought it to a producer, and she was like, "Can't write the kid as the lead." I'm like, "But it's a family friendly film." She's like, "Doesn't matter. You have to have some stars as the adults, because no one wants to," which is why a lot of the stuff where the kid is the lead is now animation, because that's a lot easier to sell than live action.
And would you say that's more because it's easier to schedule shooting with a child, like in every scene, and it would take a lot longer because
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a ton of like things that you have to do to have a child actor, which is, why for years high school students have been played by 25-year-olds. So that's part of it, but also just a child as the lead just doesn't sell as well, unless you're Harry Potter, right? And Harry Potter had a ton of like adult characters that were every bit as interesting. So,
and Stephen, did you want to jump back on and ask your question about
Oh yeah, you were saying this idea that what sells is, I think, family friendly action adventure, as opposed to, another sort of subgenre for. So could you just give an example, just in a generic way, of like what would be family friendly action adventure, if I understood this correctly?
Yeah, I was looking at what had done really well, but it was live action. I was looking at what came out just this year that was popular. Things that are not IP, like "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret," which basically everything I just said, it doesn't do any of that, but that was really, really huge IP, and that's why that why that did so well. Something that did really well for here we go. Okay, so a couple of things that Wonka is coming out, and that's definitely fantasy, action, adventure, right? That's obviously IP. Uh, then you have all of the, boy, there's really a dearth of, you have all the Disney remakes, Peter Pan and Wendy, which obviously is IP and it's obviously action adventure, did okay. But that's sort of the genre that we're talking about. That was live action. It did okay reviews. It did okay. So something like that. What else is coming? The Magician's Elephant. You guys heard about that one? That's animation. Did okay. Not great. Even Pixar is having a tough time, as you know, from Elemental. Elemental was a little bit of a bomb, actually, even though it got decent reviews. Again, that's animation. So, that's kind of tough. I'm trying to give you the best example of something that's okay. So there's a couple of things that were low to mid budget that did okay. Like if anybody saw Dog Gone, I think it was a Netflix movie. Action adventure, couple of stars, a cute dog. So that did okay. True Spirit, which is about the girl who tried to sail around the world, action adventure. What else? That's not family. That's Wendy, Crater, Little Mermaid. Oh, can we talk for a moment about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? All of those. Boy, are those great family films, great 4-quadrant films, amazing animation, huge money makers. Obviously, really big IP, but just a really fresh take on the IP, and a very urban take, a very young cultural take. Did very well, but that is definitely action adventure.
Well, what do you think about creating your own IP, like having graphics, turning something making a graphic novel out of something? Because it seems like people are IP is king these days, and
IP is king. Yeah.
If you have a way in, maybe
mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're investing
in
something else, but if it
mm-hmm.
follows the script, you kind of have almost like you're storyboarding in a way when it does
right. Right. That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's the long route, obviously, because you have to create it, you have to sell it in book form so that it builds up an audience, and then probably somebody will take a look at it. So but if you want to write a graphic novel and kind of use it as your Bible, you could try that. But with everything being so expensive, it's kind of a social media game. Like if something has a following, they'll actually want to invest in it. I think I told you my partner and I have a a meeting next week with animation at Netflix about a live action script that we wrote 4 years ago, so pre-pandemic. And at that time, there was some interest, and now it's an original story, so it's not connected to any IP, and it's an action adventure. It's a fantasy, and it's crazy and out there. Now it's looking really promising for animation, even though we wrote it originally live action. That's how much the market has changed. Was that helpful? I'm trying to answer your questions with kind of my own experience.
That's was that okay, Steve? Yep.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
So I just guess we have a few more minutes. If you could talk about, like, so if you've written something that falls into the family friendly category, what would you do as an emerging writer, as like the process of getting it somewhere to get it sold and made and that?
Yeah. Well, obviously nothing makes it to the theaters much anymore, unless you're Wonka, right? So low to mid budget, trying to get it into somebody at one of the streaming services to take a look at it. Like I said, it's really helpful to know independent producers who may have deals with networks or deals with some of the streaming services, or at least a reputation with some of the streaming services. It's kind of hard to go in cold. So building your stable of people that you know, and somehow to get it into the hands of someone who's like, oh, I love this, and I kind of want to get this made, which has happened a couple of times with us. It's been very rare. I don't know if it's ever happened that we've just turned something in and it was like purchased. That doesn't happen very often. But yeah, so at least in my experience, the best thing is to build a stable of friends who are producers who have some connection, so you can bridge the gap between you and these very overworked development people at the streaming services who just have entire teams that read through things to find something worthwhile, so they're reading 10 things a day, and makes it very difficult to get it anywhere. So yeah.
Okay. And then
that's my thought.
I want to know if you can speak about your writing process. Do you break things down into acts and then write the script, or do you do an outline?
Oh, we do a very partly because I'm a narrative person, like I'm a book writer. I have to have a really, really, really extensive outline, almost like the narrative version of the script itself, and then it goes quickly then into a script. Also because I have a writing partner and we don't live in the same city. We do a lot of passing of projects back and forth as we're doing it. That really helps that we're on the same page with a really extensive outline. So that is my personal work plan. I can never just like open final draft and just start writing. I think that's a given, but maybe not, but yeah, knowing exactly where you're headed through the outline is basically how I do it.
Okay. And then do you recommend going to film and TV conferences and festivals to meet producers? Is that a good way to do it? Is there other ways?
Yeah, you can do that. You can a lot of times if you submit to some of the contests, I'm not the expert on which ones are real and which ones are crap. There's a lot of crap out there, but some of them are decent. And to find out, you look through your winners, see if they've gotten anything beyond that. I'm a script reader for Save the Cat, which is a script writing style, style of thing. So I read a lot of scripts for their script contests. 90% of them are terrible. So that when one kind of pokes through, you're like so delighted. Yeah. So here's one thing, guys. I cannot express to you enough, having read all this stuff, before you turn anything in for anybody, have somebody else look at it to make sure that the grammar and the spelling is all there, because it's very hard to take anyone seriously if they don't know the difference between your Y-O-U-R and your Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. So it's a really good idea to have somebody edit it and proofread it before you turn it in anywhere.
And I would imagine it's good to get coverage, before you start, get something, so the story is cohesive and everything you want to. Okay, so we can kind of wrap up.
Well, I hope this has been helpful. I've just been basically trying to give you from my own experience, which is different from other people's experience, obviously. But I don't know if this is like crazy to say, but I have no problem if you want to give the people in the room here my email address, because I do mentor and help people all the time and read things for people, and I don't mind doing that at all. So if you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you for that, actually. A couple people. So if you can type it in the chat box, and then everyone's welcome to stick around afterwards and do a little networking after Shari leaves.
Chat box. Okay. I was going to ask what everybody's favorite family film was of the last couple of years, because I know I have my own thing, but it kind of tells you like who you are as a writer, to find out what people really love. And my personal favorite was Paddington 2. I think it's like the most perfect family film ever written, and it does have 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. So just the most perfectly structured, whimsical, funny, just fantastic. Wish I'd written it.
Your email didn't come through. I didn't see it yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad.
And then I don't know if the picture
meeting group chat. That's what I should send it to, right? Okay. There we go. Let's try that one more time.
I don't know if anybody else is.
Okay.
There we go.
See that now? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, Steve, you're getting exclusive access. Avengers, I love all the Avengers. Black Panther's my favorite. So, okie doke.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's been a great hour.
Hope that was helpful.
So long.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
And then, like I say, anybody who wants to stick around and do a little networking, see if I can get rid of my spotlight and make me. Yeah, I can't see myself. I don't know why. There we go. So yeah, I think so Enrico, I know I got your email address before, and Steve, I know I have yours. Renoli, I think I might have yours too. So you're going down, Steve, are you going down to Austin? Was that?
Yeah, yep. I'm in LA right now. I'm forcing myself to be here on the ground twice a year since I'm Brooklyn based, and it's expensive, but it's sort of good because, you know, when you're here and spending money, you just force yourself to have meetings because you need to make it worth your investment. So I've had a couple good sort of spontaneous meetings. Any other advice with going to Austin? I've learned the hard lesson that you have to register right after the conference for the next year so that you can grab a pitch spot.
Yeah, they're tough to come by. But you know, you'll be able to talk to people about it. You know, I recommend the roundtables, which I don't know if you submitted to any of the conference, to the contest, screenwriting contest.
No, I'll do that next time around.
Because a lot of times if you get into if you become a second rounder, you get to sit at roundtables. I think everyone can get a roundtable. But that's where you can sit and talk to, you know, it's basically an executive sitting around a table with 6 or 7 other writers, and each person has a chance to tell them, you know, about their projects and stuff.
And is it something you sign up for, or you just?
Yeah, that's something you sign up for right after you register. There'll be a place where there'll be a booth right there where you can sign up for those roundtables. So,
but you don't do it until you're on the site.
Right. Yeah. So because they don't have like the lineup yet of who the people are. So they probably do now, but they kind of just open it up to after you register, there's like a booth and you can just stop over, and they have like 8 or 10 different roundtables. You can only go to one, but there's also a standby line that you can go to and just wait to see if the room doesn't fill up. And then they usually take 5 or 6 people, usually don't show up, you know, if you want to continually go to those roundtables, which they're good. I mean, you don't know who you're going to meet with. There's like 8 tables and you get to speak with 3 different stations. So you'll speak to 3 out of the 8 different executives. You never know who you're going to get, what rotation you're going to get or anything like that. So it's just you know, potluck, but again, it's a good place to get your material out there. And also you know, when you go to these, there's a lot of panels that, you know, I'm sure you've seen all the speakers and all the people that are going to be talking. You know, sometimes you can talk to them afterwards. Yeah, and there's plenty, people are always at the bar, like everyone's pretty accessible.
And
so,
okay, so the roundtables, and any particular like social event that's like, you know, don't miss it because it's just, you know, people are like, it's easy access and easygoing access.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of tough to really, I mean, nobody goes there with the expectation they're going to sell anything. It's kind of a really big networking thing where you'll just meet other filmmakers and other mostly writers, but there are agents and managers sitting around there. And, you know, there are parties. I'll get you into I mean, when you run into me, we'll talk and I'll introduce you to some people, but there's private parties, like there's a Stage 32 party that happens every Friday night, and that's a great party. Usually a lot of people go there. That's I don't know, I'm pretty good friends with RB, the guy who runs Stage 32, and he throws that every year. So yeah, I mean, it's just a fun. Nobody I've met has left thinking they've wasted a week. You always get, and when you get back from it, you're always so inspired to, like, you know, just like what you're doing in LA now. You know, it's kind of like you're with your people, because you'll meet a lot of people that are, you know, your level below, level above. You know, there are A-list screenwriters going to be there. Dan Gore is going to be talking. I love his stuff, so I'll probably go to that. And those people will be sitting around the bar, and whether we have the the nerve to go up and talk to them, but people do. I mean, they're not in Hollywood, so they kind of feel they're more relaxed and more laid back. I don't know what the strike effect will have on any of the A-list screenwriters or anything like that, but I think you'll find you'll get a lot out of it.
And I would think that they kind of expect, that they're targets for somebody to strike up a conversation. I mean, if there's someone you really want to talk to and they're at the bar, I mean, is it appropriate just to say, hey, can I buy you a drink and pick your brain for a few minutes? Or like, what's the social protocols?
It's crowded and it's loud. It might be a little tough, but if you can navigate that, yeah. I mean, they'll be honest. They'll say, either yeah, sure, or maybe here's they might have a good way of saying no, whatever. But it's nothing. Everybody's everyone's been where we have been through so they kind of know and they understand. If you're so socially tactful and not aggressive or anything, yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. And I don't think you'd have a problem with that.
What are you working on, Andy? What's your passion project right now?
So I have a film, Squonk, called Squonk, and it's about this cryptid that's just kind of it's local to Pennsylvania, and it's this cryptid. It's like they're like the Loch Ness monster or Bigfoot. That's what the cryptid. This one's like the ugliest creature on earth, and it's so ashamed of its looks that it just spends all day crying. And if you get anywhere near it, it'll completely burst into a puddle of tears, and so you can't really see it that much. But so I wrote a script about that, and it's close to pre-production. I have a producer attached. We're on a funding site now. We can't really talk to actors. We're looking for a director, and it like made the quarterfinal of Nickel. So that's how I was able to attract the producer, who I also met in Austin. So kind of it's definitely a way. And the first person that I've ever started making films with, I met standing in line in Austin, waiting for one of the panels. So it's definitely a good place to, you might not the first year, but like, if you go over and over again, you kind of get to know people. You hang out late, the late night parties are really where you get to know people. But, I made some really good connections there, and they've kind of pushed my career to where it is.
Are y'all talking about AFF or South by?
AFF.
Oh,
South by is a little different. I've never been there. I was there way back before when it was just music, like back in 1999. It was like just bands would come there and people would book their shows all over. I mean, you would see some great bands in bars for an hour, but it's become like crazed. Just because it's not just filmmaking, it's media, it's gaming, it's just high-tech stuff. So but Boston Film Fest, it's a screenwriting conference. It's pretty much the only screenwriting conference there is. So for next year, you should definitely go. I don't know if
yeah, that's a good time. Thank you. Sorry, you can go.
No. Glad to have you join in. It's good to see you at all these panels. I'm getting to know almost everybody. Anyway, so and
All
Steve,
right.
so are you going to be pushing something? I mean, what's on your plate?
Yeah, so I was in nonprofit. I was a choral conductor for 25 years, and then when COVID came, I decided to make the leap and do what I always wanted to do full time, which is write. And so I had a play off Broadway that did well, and because my part-time writing career was basically musicals, and then I kind of the Last Boy, which ran off Broadway right after the pandemic, is a straight play with music. But I have gone deep now into screenwriting, and I'm a big Robert McKee fan. And actually, out in LA, I finally found Sid Field's book in the LA Public Library. I had never read any of his stuff. I have 5 screenplays done. Pretty good ratings on Blacklist, 6s and 7s and 8s, so that's been good. And actually, it's been a way to get some. Of course, being we're all overachievers. At first, I was like, well, why didn't I get a 9? But I've learned a little bit about Blacklist that a 6 and a 7, and an 8 are really respectable. So, and yeah,
You get free reads after you get a couple. I don't know if they're still doing that. I've had.
Yeah, I know. It was interesting when I got an 8 on a first. That they gave you 2 free months, two new reads, and they put you right up on the top list, which was interesting because you're supposed to have at least 2 evaluations. But I guess they want someone to find a good script, with them as opposed to somewhere else.
Well, did you get your 2 free reads?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that.
And it's interesting because it seems like getting on the top list is the whole deal, because any of my scripts that have been on the top list, I've had tons of views, really every other day. But those that, didn't make it to the top list, there's nobody viewing it. So it seems like the top list is the whole goal, which you've got to have like higher than a 6 average. Like a 6 doesn't cut it. It's got to be like 6.25 or something. And then I guess that's where industry is like scrolling. They're having their apprentices like scroll through the top list and then they look.
Yeah, I mean those things are. I remember getting an 8 and getting 2 reads, and then I got a 7 and a 3 on my second reads. I'm like, how did I get a 3?
I know.
I had that same issue. They gave me a free read though, because I had a script that had the same thing. I got a 3, but it was like really disparate. I was like, that's crazy that 2 people read it. One person was like, oh, this is pretty good, and then I think it got like a 5 or 6 the first time, and then the second time it got a 3, and I was like, yo, that's crazy.
Or if you get language that's like, this has got such enormous potential, and it's that by the verbiage, it seems like you should have gotten like a 7 or an 8, and then they give you a 4.
I've gotten that where it says this will definitely, all you have to do is tweak this little bit and this will totally attract buyers, and you'll definitely sell this movie. Here's the 4. You get 4. I'm like, wait a minute.
I think it's subjective. I was working at the AFI Film Festival, and there's a guy who hated Avengers. I was like, that's crazy. I could understand if it's not your thing, but for you to say like the movie made that much money, obviously it's not a bad. I was like, it's weird how people's opinions, like they'll read or look at the same thing, and then one person's just like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah. All those things, and they all cost money. It's like it's so easy for us screenwriters to spend millions of dollars trying to get things, But Steve, have you been to the Writers Guild building where you can go to the library and read any script? It's, if you have a chance, if you're still in LA, it's definitely something. If you have to like pre-sign up for it, but you can sign up for like 5 hours from now. Usually they have openings, and you type in 4 or 5 scripts you want to read. When you show up, they actually have them sitting there for you, and pretty much anything ever written out there they have the script for. It's a really cool place. It's on it's near the what's that place called? Not the Villages. I'm having a mental. It's the big mall in the middle of LA.
Oh, okay. In the downtown?
What's that?
Downtown?
Yeah, not that far downtown. It's west of downtown.
The Grove?
The Grove, that's it.
The Grove,
That,
yeah.
right near the Grove. It's right on the corner there.
I just got, so I've been doing like, I've been entering some contests over the last year, and a few, and this game, it's like, of course you want to get tens and sell something, but sometimes just a little encouragement like makes you like, you think about like, am I crazy doing this? There's so many people trying to do it, and do I have any talent? And then you make it to the semi finalists, or the quarter or the semifinalists, and then it's like, okay, well, at least I mean, if you're doing those things and getting decent marks on blacklist, then okay, then I'm not completely insane, in terms of just having having some modicum of talent. And then I just got it's like, careful what you wish for. So I don't know if you know this, but Zero Gravity is one of those management companies that they'll accept unsolicited queries. So I've been trying to focus a little bit more on like non-period, because I gravitate towards period because I love history, and I'm realizing what everybody learns is like it's really hard to get somebody to listen because of the expense. So so I developed this, I don't know, maybe I did it on one of your programs, Andy, but I'm working on this piece called 28, which is a FBI agent who's recently lost a child in a school shooting, finds himself the sole negotiator with a female leader of a paramilitary group who's taken 50 family members of Republican senators hostage in the U.S. Capitol, demanding the repeal of the Second Amendment in 24 hours. So, it's obviously not period, and it's sort of an important, timely topic. And I've been getting a lot of traction. Like I sent it to Zero Gravity, and I quoted some of the things Blacklist said, which were like, it was only a 5 rating, but like, it was like over the top. Like, this is very commercial and very timely and very attractive. And so Zero responded like pretty fast and said, send the script. Now I know that's still just getting like just barely through the door, but it's nice. And so now I'm just preparing it to send to them in the hopes of maybe getting management.
No,
That's
that's
a great
great.
idea. It
Yeah,
reminds me of that. There is a Denzel Washington movie that was this kind of similar, but on the medical side. John Q. Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, his kid. His kid needed like some type of medical procedure, and he like holds the hospital hostage in the TV.
Okay, what's it called?
I think it's called John Q. You know what I'm talking about, Andy?
John Q, just the letter Q.
Yeah, John Q. So Denzel Washington, his son needs like a heart transplant or something like that, some big major, and he doesn't have the money to pay for it. So he holds the hospital hostage because and it becomes this big like public thing, and people stand up for him because it's like the healthcare system sucks. But it's like 90s maybe.
I have a producer friend in New York who is good friends with Jessica Chastain. So and he has said that he will put the script in her hands. So I've kind of designed the female leader of the paramilitary group like for her. So she's kind of like a cougar, hot like 45-year-old. And it's also sort of what I wanted to do was kind of turn the gun debate on its head, because basically she's using the threat of gun violence to end gun violence. So it's sort of, because I'm trying to, like, I don't want to alienate the pro-gun faction. So it's sort of everybody gets a little bit of what they want, because in a way she's kind of a folk hero for the left, but she's also kind of the antagonist because she's a terrorist. I mean, she's threatening innocent lives. So trying to just take a little bit of like a different angle around the whole horrible debate.
Yeah, that's very timely. That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Um,
So how have you been able to get meetings out in LA? You know, people that you've been able to.
So, I mean, meetings, I mean, that's probably using the term loosely. I'm taking this in my mind. I'm thinking every morning, like, okay, keep writing and keep getting better and write great stuff. Go the normal routes of like the screenwriting competitions and the festivals and the cold queries. And then that third piece, which is like out of the box, you're the guy who cuts your hair's brother. And, so like, for instance, when I was, I taught for 25 years. So I have all these students out there, and like one of them is at William Morris. So I have this story about two boys named Johnny who in 1902 broke the high school basketball color line. One of them was black, one of them is white. It's a true story. And so I've been trying to get Maverick Carter interested from Spring Hill. He's the CEO for LeBron James. He's impossible to get, obviously, but his agent is a William Morris agent. So one of my students is a William Morris agent, not in film, but in the music industry end. But it's like, it's like one of your kids. It's like, okay, you're going to do this for me because you told me I changed your life when you were 10. And now you are going to introduce me to his agent today.
You're going to change my life. It's time to pay back.
You're always stepping on eggshells and kissing butt, but like when it's a student who's got some power, it's like, no, you'll do this.
Yeah. Well, okay, I got to run, guys.
Yeah, all right.
I gotta run too. All right, thank you.
Enrico, where are you based at?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. So
Steve, you're in New York?
Yeah, what's that?
You're in New York normally?
No, I'm in New York, but LA right now. If you want to get together, happy to buy a coffee or a drink, Enrico, and just sort of continue.
Okay.
I'm here till Saturday.
All right, I'll drop you my email. Here we go. Here, I'll drop you my number.
All right, thanks. Sorry, Andy. Let me just grab this number.
No problem.
I didn't get it.
There we go.
There it is. Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Andy. You're just so great with all this. So thanks so much.
Thanks, and we'll definitely hang in Austin.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna find you because I'm gonna be like a babe in the wood.
No, you won't be that long because there's so many people. I'll introduce you to, and
That's awesome. You're awesome. Thank you, Andy.
thank you. All right, talk soon.